Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Suchon.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are in Southern California, combination of San Diego and Los Angeles. And this week we are discussing a little bit of PR, but mostly we're talking about the fascinating world of voiceover artists. Our guest is Wendy Hovland. She is a voiceover artist, and this is a fun podcast because Wendy and I are both attending the same conference. It is called That's Voiceover Expo. I was thinking about attending this, and I asked Wendy for her advice, and she said, yes, not only should you go, but it's one of the best ones. So thank you for being the guest. It's great to record this in person instead of over Zoom, Wendy, and welcome to the Where You At podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. And we've been having a great time at the conference too. So I'm excited to talk about that and excited to talk about San Diego State and the experiences I had there in the journalism program. And just so happy to be here.
Yeah, there's so many things that I've learned. It's been a combination of overwhelming because of the number of talented people at this expo, but also really inspirational. Let's just start with this. I don't know a whole lot about voiceover. I've learned a lot in the last 2 days. You tell me, you tell the audience, what do people need to know about what it means to be a voiceover artist? Because you do advertising, corporate narration, e-learning, audiobooks, commercials, pretty much anything. But tell us, what does it mean to be a voiceover artist?
Yeah, essentially, I would say that it's acting. It's a part of acting where we're using our voice to tell stories. And it can be all of those things and even more. There are voice actors, and so many of the things that we hear in our day in, day out lives. And oftentimes we may not even think about the work that went into it to provide the voice that's there. But it's a really fun industry. I've had a great time in it and just learning every single day.
We have heard so many inspirational stories around us this weekend. And I think that one of the things that's really just stood out to me is just the kindness in this industry. I mean, when you think about performance, whether that's acting or journalism, local TV news, national news, it can be really competitive. It can be really cutthroat. So what does it mean to you to be a part of an industry that, a community that just has so much kindness and how much people want to support each other?
I do feel that, and I especially feel that at this conference. And I think it is kind of a underlying theme of connectivity and inspiration, which is why I have come to this conference over and over. I just love to soak that in and take that into the new year with me as I look forward to whatever the new year holds for all of us. And another message that I have just loved this year at the conference is that message of being yourself, and that what you bring to your work, whatever your work may be, makes it unique, makes it special, and to just lean more into that, lean more into being yourself. And I just love that message.
So you were a journalism major. How does a journalism major end up becoming a voiceover artist? Let's hear your story, your journey of how you got here.
I feel like I have traveled a winding road. But I also feel like we end up exactly where we're supposed to be. So in school, I actually started out as a speech major. That was a different department at the time when I was there. And one of my assignments was to have an informational interview. And I went and talked with Gary Bonelli, who at the time was heading up public affairs and public relations at Sandag. And he said, well, my recommendation is that you switch majors and go into the PR section, which was in journalism. And I have to say, his advice really was wonderful, because learning how to write well in the journalism department, of course, is another communication skill that we're all using. And I really appreciated that insight that he provided. So I switched into the journalism department with an emphasis in public relations. In the back of my mind, I knew, though, I wanted to work in entertainment. And so when I graduated, I was lucky enough to secure a job with a local advertising and public relations agency in San Diego that had amazing clients, 20th Century Fox Films, Samuel Goldwyn Films, Hyatt Hotels, and the trolley with San Diego Metropolitan Transit System. And it turned out that publicity wasn't really what I enjoyed. Many of the film accounts were so fun, but it was a lot of publicity. Working on that trolley and getting to work with the community members, the business members, to actually facilitate decision-making and see the input that the community members had in shaping the project and how it ended up being, and then seeing a project actually take shape that I had the great opportunity to work on, set off my path for the next few decades. I started working in public affairs after that.
So you're in public affairs, and when does the voiceover part begin? When do you realize, okay, I can go into a closet or a studio and speak these words and do this? How did you get to stumble into voiceover work?
I concentrated pretty heavily on public affairs, as I said, for a few decades, but that dream of becoming an actor and doing what I had always wanted to do when I was a little girl was still with me. So just step by step, I started auditioning for a play and started taking classes in voiceover. It took me a while to find a great coach, but once I did, I fell in love with it. And I'll never forget stepping into the studio my first time for a paid job in a studio. It was a big milestone for me. And it was a studio that I had dreamed of recording in. It's a beautiful studio down in San Diego. And I just had an overwhelming feeling that I was getting to do what I had always dreamed of doing.
When it comes to voice work, let's get into the different types of voices. I know that I'm self-conscious of my voice. I speak for a living. I'm a broadcaster for a professional baseball team, and I host this podcast, and I know my voice has gotten better over the years, but I still get insecure about it. And one of my takeaways from this conference is that there's all different types of voices that can all be, that are all needed. But for you, how did you go about embracing your voice, maybe changing your voice as you need to, working with coaches in order to amplify your voice, in order to get your voice to where it needs to be in order to do this voiceover work?
It's such a great question and such a great observation that, yes, there is a place in this industry for everyone. It doesn't matter what your voice is like. There is a job out there for you. There's a need for you and your voice. Coaching. I can't say enough about coaching, and I have had the opportunity to work with some amazing coaches. I still work with coaches. I seek out every opportunity I can to learn new things, and there's always something new. As you said, there's so many genres, and there are genres I have worked in, and there are genres I want to work in, and coaching is, I think, the key to help unlock those opportunities. I think all of us, when we start, just as you said, look how experienced you are, and still, hearing our voice, especially early on, is hard to get used to. But like anything, I think the more you practice, the more you do it, the more you get used to it, then it becomes more comfortable.
When it comes to coaching, and I need to keep reminding myself about this because I work in baseball, I'm around coaches all the time, and I was thinking about this because not yesterday when you and I had these great conversations at lunch, but the day before, there was two guys who I talked to, and one had just started in voiceover about 9 months ago. And I said, what do you wish you knew 9 months ago that you now know? And he said, I would have spent more money on coaching and less on equipment. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought about, okay, I work in baseball. If somebody is in a slump, they don't go grab another bat. Well, they might, but the reason they're in a slump is not because of the bat that they're using. They're going to go to their coach and they're going to look at video and they're going to get in the batting cage and they're going to practice. They're going to do like these different techniques in order to get out of the slump. And I think that especially since this is an educational podcast, you go to college to learn. The instructors, the professors, they are coaches. And then sometimes you get out of college and you just think, okay, I'm done learning. But that's not the best case, as you said. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of tell us more about just being a lifelong student and how coaches have helped you get out the best in you.
I love that analogy about the bat and the player. That's going to stay with me. And wow, I think when you are an actor, when you are a voice actor, your instrument is yourself and what you bring to the performance. And so coaching is just vital to learn acting to start with, because essentially it's speaking, but it is acting, and no matter what you're doing. And so the best way, I think, to explore all of the colors that you can bring to a script or to a story or to whatever job it is to practice, learn, explore all those things. And a lot of the work we do is self-directed when we're auditioning, even when we're performing. And so I especially think working with coaches and having that experience of them coaching you, directing you, it helps you then make informed choices when you're in the booth and there isn't anyone there to direct you.
And I think with coaching, we use the word coach for voiceover, but in the newsroom, it's news director. At a newspaper, it might be the editor, the managing editor. No matter what your industry is, there's somebody who's there who's coaching you, even if you don't have the title of coach. Let me also ask you this. In terms of who can do voiceover, we've heard stories this weekend about people who started when they were 6 years old, 8 years old, because they were child actors. Can college students, can high school students, can retirees, who are different people who can work in voiceover?
I think anybody can work in voiceover if they're interested in it. It is a job that requires you to be an entrepreneur, which means there's a lot to it. There is the whole performance aspect, but there is also the fact that you are running your own small business. So you are the accountant, you are the marketing person, you are planning, you're planning your year, you are a business manager and a CEO. And so there is a lot to it. But if you have the interest in it, if you have the passion, if you have the resilience, I would encourage anyone who is interested to explore it.
Okay, so another part of voiceover work, and I think this carries over into journalism as well, is just getting over rejection, right? You apply for a job, you don't get it. If you're looking for a job in local TV or a newspaper, maybe you're trying to get an interview with somebody and they won't call you back or they blow you off. There is so much rejection in the voiceover artist industry. What are some of the tips that you do so that you don't go crazy and get paralyzed when you audition time after time after time and you don't get that job?
In all acting, there is a lot of rejection. I have come to the conclusion that is most of the job. And that was really, really difficult for me. At heart, I'm a perfectionist and I always want to do a great job with everything. But it doesn't really matter. And I don't know that that sounds inspiring. You do, of course, want to do a great job, but you really never know why you are getting picked or not picked. Sometimes the reasons you're getting picked aren't even obvious to the person who is picking you. It's art, essentially. So it's very subjective. And it was very hard for me to build up the resilience to accept those no's. And so some of the things I tell myself are that what is meant for me will come to me. Mm-hmm. And so if I audition for something and it goes to someone else, it was meant for that person. And I celebrate that person. I also firmly believe a rising tide lifts all boats. And so that helps me be thrilled for my colleagues. When they get jobs, I am excited for them because they are helping elevate everyone. And so I try to concentrate on those things. Also, I've tried to get better at doing the performance and leaving it behind me, not waiting to hear, did I get picked or not get picked, to really just let it go as soon as I'm done with it. So I actually literally walk over to the recycling bin and put my script in there and move on. If they pick me, they'll send me a new script or I can reprint it again. But just that physical aspect of letting it go has helped me quite a bit.
So when this podcast began about a year ago, Wendy got in touch with Temple Northrup, who's the director of the JMS, and he forwarded the information to me. And Wendy and I talked a little bit, and I told her about how, I've kind of thought about maybe trying some voiceover. And I subscribed to voices.com, which is a pay-to-play type of website. Basically, you fill out a profile and someone submits, we're looking for someone to do this, and you audition for it. And if you get the job, you get the job. But if not, you don't. And I was looking at the numbers that I had earlier this morning, Wendy. And since joining voices.com, I have auditioned for 202 different jobs. Out of those 202 jobs, only 81 times have they even listened to me. 6 times I got shortlisted, which I guess meant that I was somewhat of a finalist. And I got 1 gig. That's it, 1 gig. So in baseball terms, if I had 1 hit in 202 at-bats, I would have been released a long time ago. But I was so thrilled when I got that one. It was just a small part. It wasn't a whole lot of money. It didn't take me very long once I got it. And so I think that my message would be, every time that you get rejected, it makes the yes feel that much better. And I know that once I got that one yes, it was motivating. Like, okay, keep trying. Like, this might be the ratio for me. It might be that I have to audition 202 times in order to get 1 gig. And so if nothing else, it's brought some clarity to me of, this is just the job. The job is auditioning 201 times and being told no. And then one time you get it. And now you just got to go from there.
It's true. That's a huge success story. I have to say, there's just so many no's getting to that yes, getting the opportunity to do the job. You do have to just weather those rejections and be resilient and just learn with each one and take each audition as an opportunity to get better and to, take that with you to the next audition, and everyone builds upon the next.
The other thing that I want to get into here, and this was also a conversation that I had at a different lunch, and there's another guy who is fairly new to voiceover work, and I asked him the same question. What do you wish you knew when you started that you now know? And he said that when he was putting together his demo reel, they gave him a whole bunch of different, he got his demo reel professionally done, and they gave him a number of different scripts that were real, but to practice on. And so he was basically picking one from this category, one from that category, one from a bunch of different categories. And then when he put together his reel, there wasn't really a whole lot of continuity to it. And he felt like if he could do it all over again, which he's going to do now, he's going to spend more money in order to make sure that his reel has more of like, this is really what he's good at. And so I thought about that. And I thought about, okay, how many resumes do I have? I just have 1 resume. But if I'm applying for a voiceover job, that's different than if I'm applying for a baseball play-by-play announcing job, or if I'm trying to get some other type of writing job. And so it made me think, well, why do I only have 1 resume? I should have multiple resumes, or multiple demo reels, multiple samples of my writing, multiple samples of my play-by-play, whatever it is that people are doing within journalism. And I just thought that really made sense. And why did it take me this long to realize that I should have more than 1 resume? And so I'm wondering if you can speak to the idea that you're only as good as the samples of your work, and how you try to put together those samples to show people, this is what I've done and this is what I can do for you.
I hear a few things in that.
It's a really long question.
It's okay. To speak first to the demo reel, that is really a voice actor's resume. You are exactly right. And you do want to showcase your voice in the very best way you can. And as you said, the best way to do that is with a professional demo producer. There are a number of them out there. If you are someone who wants to go into voiceover and wants to get a demo reel done, as we talked about first, I would suggest coaching. Get a lot of coaching, because you will want to be able to replicate whatever is on your reel when you're hired. And then when you're searching for a demo producer, ask people who have had their demos produced. How did they like them? How did they like working with that producer? Has the demo served them well? Ask them all those questions. And then hopefully the person you choose will work with you to create a demo reel that showcases you in the best light, portrays you authentically, and shows a full range. A commercial demo is considered the general demo that everybody starts with. That is the general resume, if you would say it that way. And then after you build experience and figure out what genres you really shine in and what brings you joy and what people hire you for, then people usually start getting additional demos in different genres.
I remember talking to Amber Salas on this podcast, and she got a job with this small TV station in Iowa, and she had sent off 50, 60, and always got no.
Lots of no's.
Lots of no's. So many no's. But she kept updating her demo reel. And as she was interning with a TV station in San Diego, she said that she kept updating it. She kept working with people at the TV station so that it can look more and more professional. I've heard this from other people and other people we've had on the podcast as well, in terms of just constantly update that demo reel. Every day you get better. At least you should be getting better. And so every time that there's a new story that you're proud of, and sometimes it's really hard for us because we're just on to the next story, we're on to the next assignment, the next gig. But the importance of, in order to get the next gig, I need to definitely show this is the latest of what makes me good. And I got to keep reminding myself of that. And that's why I'm kind of bringing this up so that we can discuss the importance of, like you said, you have to be your own marketer. You have to be your own CEO of your own business here.
Yes. And I would say when creating a demo, it is an investment. And so hopefully the demo producer will work with you to create spots that are evergreen, if that's a way to say it, that don't get outdated quickly. And hopefully you won't have to be updating that reel all the time. However, sharing your work and marketing what you do is really important. And we've heard several people talk this weekend at the conference about using social media and having, an updated website and sharing your material there on your website. And so I do think that's important to share what your capabilities are, and people want to see your journey. They want to hear what you're doing and see what you're doing.
When it comes to getting representation, it sounds so glamorous. Oh, I have an agent. I have a manager. I have West Coast representation. Oh, I have a book representation. How does someone know that they need one, and how does somebody know that they are good enough to have an agent? Because I think they're two different questions, because I think a lot of people sit back and go, oh yeah, I'm not getting the jobs that I want to be getting no matter what the industry is. I need an agent. But then there's an agent saying, well, I'm not going to hire you until I'm not going to take you on as a client until I know that you're really good, that you can be a part of my business.
I wish I knew the magic recipe.
I think we all wish.
Right? What is the magic recipe? I can only tell you what has helped me. I do have representation now, and I am thrilled to have representation. However, it was not easy for me to figure out how to get representation. And so the best way, I think, is to be referred. If you know of someone that is with an agent, ask them, do they really like their agent? Have they enjoyed a great relationship with them? And if they know your work and feel confident in what you can do, you can ask if they can refer you. So that is definitely a way to do it. But I think that things really changed for me when I stopped trying to chase getting representation and instead decided to try to become a talent that someone would want to represent. Because we really don't have any control over whether someone wants to represent us, to hire us. We don't have control over those factors. So it becomes very frustrating, for lack of a better word. However, we have full control over ourselves and how we are proceeding. And so it was a very big mind shift for me to just concentrate on improving my skills, focusing on the work, doing the best I can in each audition and each day. And I don't know what to say. The universe then moves in our favor, and then representatives start to find you. So I think that for me was a game changer.
Well, speaking of the universe creates things, we had an amazing lunch yesterday, the day before we recorded this, with some people and just spontaneous conversations. You never know who's going to sit next to you and the stories that you hear. And I don't want to go into the stories that we heard from others, because I don't know if I can do them justice. But I think the thing that was some of my takeaways was something happens to you at some point in your life and it really sucks. And it's really easy to go, why in the world did this happen to me? And then maybe it's 2 years later, maybe it's 2 decades later. And then because of this thing that happened to you, it makes you better for this role, for this story, for this assignment, for this opportunity that's in front of you, whether it's just that you appreciate it more or you're doing a voice, you're doing a character, and you can relate to this character because the same thing happened to you. And I'm wondering if you can just speak to just sort of like, the circle of the universe and how something happens and you may not know for a really long time why it happened, and then it helps you later on in your life.
It's such a deep question, really.
I know.
But I look back now, and as we started this, and I told my story, I worked in public affairs for many years, and there's a little part of me that looks back and goes, "Oh, I'm so happy I had all those experiences, but I wish I'd done acting and voiceover earlier." But I look back also and go, I really needed to become more confident in myself, more confident in my skills, build up that resiliency to no's and rejection. In addition, I feel like because I had the opportunity to work in that technical field really for so long, I worked mainly with engineers and environmental, planners and specialists. I get to bring all of that with me into the booth now. And so one of the arcs that I work in most often is corporate narration because I worked in the corporate world. And in addition, as I said, being in this business, you're an entrepreneur. And again, I wasn't always working in the creative art world. I worked in the business world for a long time. So I know what that looks like. I was able to bring that with me too in my suitcase. And then just in a larger way, if I hadn't worked in that field, I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have had all the experiences that I have had. And I feel like in the tapestry of our lives, when we look back, the rough times, as you say, the things we consider failures at the time, even the things we consider detours, everything gets used for good. Everything gets used. And so I think that helps me not have regret or, not second guess myself, but to try to move forward knowing that every day we are where we're supposed to be. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're meeting the people we're supposed to meet and have the conversations we're supposed to have. And it helps me look at each day as tinged with a bit of magic and serendipity and excitement and mystery too. What's today going to be like?
Yeah, I can definitely relate. Probably tell the story too many times now, but what I'm doing right now, play-by-play announcer for a baseball team, is what I always wanted to do. If you would have asked me at age 12, what is it that you want to do? And I would say I want to be a play-by-play announcer for a professional baseball team, except that I would say a major league team instead of a minor league team. I spent 10 years as a newspaper reporter, and it's really easy for me to also sit back and go, man, if I just would have started earlier, maybe I would already be in the major leagues. But I also know that I might have known baseball, or at least I thought I knew baseball. I might have had the energy and the excitement. I don't know if I had the voice. I don't know if I had the self-confidence to be able to talk into a microphone. Definitely didn't think I had the confidence to speak into a microphone with a camera. So I think I needed that 10 years to learn how to formulate sentences, to understand how to interview people, to learn how to be able to basically just type something and then say, nope, delete, backspace, delete that whole paragraph, move that paragraph up here, move that sentence down here, reverse the order of that sentence. And I think that ultimately made me a better broadcaster, even though I didn't realize it at the time. And it's still very easy for me to think, man, what if? But yeah, we are the product of our journey, even if the journey doesn't go in the linear fashion that we're hoping that it occurs in.
Mm-hmm. I also want to say, I hear in your story, courage. It takes courage to make a change. It takes courage to do new things. It takes courage to follow your dreams. And I would just encourage anybody that's listening, if there's something that they want to do, to, take that courageous step, because it's so worth it. I hear you you're living the life that you dreamed of living. And that's just wonderful. I can't think of anything better. And I feel the same, that I get to do right now what I'm doing. I feel like those are the dreams that I had as a little girl.
When you sit down to record something, and you've got this cool box now that you have. But, sometimes people just do it in closets because the clothing's really good about blocking out echoes.
It is.
What's your process? Water? Is it tea? Is it warming up your voice? Is it moving your arms around and dancing a little bit? Like, what's your process to kind of get your voice, your mind, your body into the space so that you can deliver this really good voiceover?
Yeah, I'm so thankful to one of my early coaches, Beverly Bremmers, who taught me a whole exercise, to warm up. It's a lot of she is a singer also, as well as a voiceover artist and coach. And a lot of the exercises are the exact same exercises that singers do to warm up your voice. And I always stretch to warm up my body, because even though we're using our voice, we are acting with our whole body, even though you don't see it. And so that's really important.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. When your body's tense, can it be heard? Can you hear that back when your body's tense?
That was one of the most interesting things I heard at the conference yesterday. We heard from someone who is vision impaired and was talking about the experience of listening to voices, even though he can't see what is the picture in front of him. And he said he could hear the expression in the voice. Isn't that interesting? So yes, I think people can hear tension. They can hear stress. They can hear exuberance. You can hear all of that in someone's voice, which is fascinating to think about, that we don't really subconsciously think about what we're bringing into each day and each interaction, but people do hear what's going on with us through our voice.
I've been constantly trying to think throughout this conference about, okay, how do I also relate it to these other parts of my life? And I know that whenever I was a writer, I always tried to write it in a way that if someone was reading it, I wanted to always sound conversational. But this topic right now about like your voice and how it sounds, it makes me think about, if you're a TV reporter, if you're an anchor, if you're on the desk, and how the tension in your voice, the exuberance in your voice, the seriousness in your voice, when it's a really sad story, how that has an impact and how you connect with an audience. Shoot, there was these live auditions yesterday to do the voiceovers for KCAL in LA. And it was really interesting hearing the judges saying the different advice that they gave about, this is the tone that we want to hear to connect with our listeners, with our audience. And I found it so fascinating listening to that and thinking about, I think all journalists, it's so natural to think we need to focus on the story, but a big part of the story is how it's delivered in your voice and how that gets delivered.
Almost across the board, I would say the first piece of advice they always give is, you're talking to one person, and all of a sudden that drops it down into a conversation instead of a broad pronouncement, if you will. And all of a sudden it's a relationship rather than just reading words off a page. And you can hear it. It's amazing. And so a lot of voiceover is also visualization. And that's part of the acting and imagination part, is imagining who you're talking to. Why are you telling them this story? Why is it important to them? Why should they care? And so a lot of it is not selling, even though a lot of it is commercials, if you will, or promoting a product or a company or whatever it is. But really, it's sharing words with someone that hopefully will make an impact to their life and make a difference.
I've been taking a lot of notes this weekend. Another one of the things that I took the note on, and I think this translates to all different levels, whether you're creating a TikTok video or whether you are standing up and doing a live hit and there's 20 other reporters that are all around you, and it's really easy to have imposter syndrome. And it's the idea that you might feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, but you don't have to be a badass every single second of the day. Right? Can you be a badass for 20 minutes, right? If you're going into your booth, Wendy, can I be a badass for the 45 seconds that I'm reading this? Or can I be a badass for the 2 minutes that I'm doing this live hit? It's probably less than 2 minutes. Just the idea that you kind of psych yourself out and you can psych yourself in by saying, I just have to be a badass for this amount of time in order to do this. And every time I do it, for this amount of time, that'll give me the confidence that I can do it a little bit longer the next time and a little bit longer the time after that?
I can't really overstate how much of performing is, for me, has been getting out of my own way. Getting over imposter syndrome, because it is very competitive, and believing that what we each bring is enough. And we've heard that repeated a few times this weekend too. And I do think the more authentic we can be in just being ourselves, the better our performance will be, the happier we will be, and the more we'll be able to connect with other people. And I think that sounds easy, and it's kind of a catchphrase, like be authentic. It actually takes so much work to get to know yourself. It really does. I don't know how to explain it. It is a long process to get to know who you are. But spending the time doing that is really, really worthwhile.
All right, we're going to start to wrap things up here. But before we do that, I want you to flash back to your time on campus when you were a student and just favorite classes, professors, things to do outside the classroom, burritos. What were just some of your best favorite memories of attending San Diego State?
I loved being at San Diego State. I am still a proud Aztec and live in San Diego. Some of my favorite teachers, specifically, when I was there, we had several professors that were working professionals that came in and gave classes. And oh my gosh, we learned so much from them. Real world experience and lessons that we were able to take right into our working life. Such a great education in the PR department. Joseph Lipper is no longer with us, but he was amazing. And I will always hold him close in my heart because he was such a profound teacher and a wonderful man, and really led with heart in everything he did and set a great example for the students. Diane Gage was another one who just taught us top-notch practical skills to hit the ground running. I was in a sorority, which I loved, and I'm still very active in my sorority and Panhellenic community. I love the community that I found at San Diego State in so many ways, both in the journalism department and in Greek life. So those are some of my favorite things.
Yeah, those I did not have those professors, but I know that I've heard their names from both when I was a student and from after, and on this podcast as well. Okay, what about, so let's brag. Let's brag about people we know who went to San Diego State who are doing things that makes us proud. You told me earlier that you're still very good friends with some people from your time at San Diego State. Brag about some Aztecs who are making you proud.
Two of my favorite and closest Aztec friends. We all met in Dr. Lipper's class, Joe Lipper's class, and we are still very close. We all went into different arcs of communication, and so it's been super fun to watch their journeys unfold. One of those individuals is Scott Pansky, who is one of the partners with Allison and Partners, Allison Worldwide. And I just love watching the work that he's done. That company, he was, in the very genesis of it, the beginning of it. And now that company has offices all over. It's been so fun to watch his work make a huge impact across the globe. And
by the way, Scott, I got to get you on the podcast next semester, but continue.
We'll look forward to that. Yes. And then Teresa Leader Anderson was our other classmate that we have kept in great touch and are close friends. And she went into the nonprofit side. And so her work has been centered around the environment, helping people. She's worked at the San Diego Food Bank. Right now she's with Urban Corps. So she, through her work in public relations and communication, has touched the lives of so many people, as well as, animals and everything that makes San Diego so beautiful and special. So it has really been a joy to stay close to the classmates that I had and watch their lives unfold.
Well, for who I'm going to brag about, it's more of a shout out. I always try to find some link to my guest. And the week that we were recording this, the baseball winter meetings were taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. And my friend Dan Hayes, a proud Aztec, he's been a guest on this podcast. he was there in the lobby, and of course he's wearing his SDSU alumni sweatshirt, and a young man comes up to him. His name is Kevin White. Kevin is currently a student at San Diego State, and Kevin just decided that he wanted to go to the baseball winter meetings just to meet people, to see what it's all about, to make himself better. And so he saw that Dan was wearing the SDSU sweatshirt, and they started talking. They talked for about an hour, and Dan gave Kevin my number. And once I get back from this conference, Kevin and I are going to have a conversation as well. And I just think that it's way to go, Kevin, way to go, Dan. I think that when it comes to conferences, it's so easy to just think, so much money, or am I really going to get something out of it? Or, what am I going to be missing out on if I don't do this? And, money's always tight for everybody. And I think that even when you go, there's the awkwardness, where should I be? Who do I talk to? So shout out to Kevin for going up to Dan. Shout out to Dan for talking to him. And then, here's the next thing. Here's this other person that you should talk to. Especially since we're here at this conference, we've met so many interesting people. I just think that it's just needed. It can be really tough to go to these conferences and really truly get something out of it. But when you do, it makes you feel like, okay, that's why these things exist.
I think especially over the last few years, we've all come to look at the opportunity to be together and learn from each other and really connect as being a gift that perhaps we took for granted years earlier. But it really is a gift to learn from one another and be here just having this experience all together.
All right. Final thoughts. It can be anything that you want. Anything that I forgot to ask, anything about your time at San Diego State, any advice that you want to give. How would you like to wrap up this podcast for people listening?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciated my time at San Diego State, and the wonderful, wonderful advice that I got when I was a student there was to do informational interviews, to try and figure out what you want to do. Take as many internships as you can, because that really does help you figure out, I really like this, or I don't like that so much, and kind of hone in on what really makes you light up, what makes you happy, what you want to do with your life. And then I guess from both of our stories, always feel free to make a change. Just be brave, move forward with courage, and know that you have everything you already need inside of you to make your dreams come true.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for encouraging me to come to this conference and the advice that you've given me. I really appreciate it. And once again, this was super fun.
Thank you. I enjoyed every moment.
A note about this podcast: today's episode is the final one for this semester. Doesn't mean that the podcast is going away. I've already talked with Temple. We're going to continue it again in the next semester, but we will go on hiatus during Christmas and New Year's. And once school is back in session in the spring of 2024, we will restart with different guests each week as we continue to try to find as many different unique stories about journalism alums or people who stumbled into journalism, communications, voiceover work. It's super fun finding all these different alums, and we will continue to tell you their stories. We always enjoy recommendations for guests and other just like ideas for what to talk to with the guests. And so it's a lot of fun. Again, this name of the podcast is Where You At? My name is Josh Suchon. Appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you again in 2024.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.